There you go.
Yay.
So as I was saying, we do have a lot of things that can influence how we age and how we age healthily, right? Listed here, we do have control over our use of alcohol, our use of smoking. We do have control over atherosclerosis, and this is hardening of the arteries. Okay, so if we're practicing good heart health, we can have some control over that. Untreated or high or low blood pressure, high cholesterol, a high homocysteine, head injuries, chronic stress, if we're overweight, if we're not treating diabetes, all of these things. We do have influence over those, or we have influence on how we can manage them better, right? Depression is listed here, and it has a little asterisk by it. There are a lot of studies, kind of, they have conflicting evidence to it, but there are studies showing that depression in later life can increase your risk for dementia. But the other studies are showing, or they're suggesting, that depression is a very early symptom of dementia. So I have that asterisk there because there's two different theories on depression. And I'm talking about later life depression. Early life depression is not really seeming to have a lot of influence as a risk factor, but late life depression is showing that. And to say that our head and our heart are directly connected. So really, anything that you do that is healthy for your heart is going to automatically be healthy for your brain. And not only does a healthy diet help your heart and your brain to function at its best, but it also strengthens our immune system. It reduces the stress response within inside of our body. When we get stressed out, there's a physiological response that happens. And when we're practicing good heart and brain health, it helps reduce that response. It gives us energy, and it increases our resiliency physically, yes, but also mentally and emotionally. And it also helps reduce our risk for other illnesses. And I love the fact that I can do that. I can increase my resiliency and just increase my overall health by what I put in my body, because I have control over what I put in my body and how I use and move my body too. We talked about exercise last week, right? I have control over that. So that gives me a sense of empowerment and a sense of control in maybe a life or a world that I don't have as much control as I want. So our diet, what we're gonna dive into today is components of what a brain healthy diet looks like. So what do I need to include to have a healthy brain diet or brain healthy diet? We're going to talk about the Mediterranean diet and the MIND diet. Those are two diets that have a lot of studies and research done on them and their effects on brain health. We'll briefly talk about supplements and vitamins, and then we'll touch on brain draining foods, because there's a lot of foods that can do the opposite of what we want them to do for our heart and our brain, right? And I love this. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And food really can be medicine for us, right? Preventative, but also it can help heal us as well. So a brain healthy diet does need to include omega-3s, so fatty acids, and we'll talk more about the omegas here in just a second, but you can find those in fish, walnuts, avocados. Antioxidants, you need antioxidants, and we're going to talk about what those are as well. Leafy greens. So a plant-based diet contains all the nutrients that a body needs, and that includes protein. I know there's a lot of misunderstanding. Well, I'm not getting enough protein if I'm just eating a plant-based diet. A lot of those whole grains and a lot of vegetables and beans, there's plenty of protein in those foods for the average body. In most of the studies now, the current studies are starting to show that plant-based diet are the best for your heart health and your brain health. You want to make sure you have healthy fats in your diet. And in general, healthy fats come from plants. So your vegetables and your fruits and your beans. The fats that come from animals are less healthy. And you get these from nuts, avocados, oils, right? Instead of, you'd rather cook with an oil rather than butter. Butter comes from animal fat, oils come from a plant fat or a seed, grain fat. Fatty fish as well, you can get these. So berries, and berries are an antioxidant, but berries contain flavonoids that have been shown over and over again to improve cognition And they're also the thing that gives the berries the color. So the blueberries, the blackberries, the raspberries, it's what gives them that color. So it's generally on the skin of the berry. So you want to make sure you're eating the whole berry as you can, because you get those flavonoids because it's contained in the skin most of the time. And you just want to start adding more color and variety in your diet. And when I say color, I mean natural color from whole foods. So I'm talking purple eggplants, green zucchinis, orange carrots, white parsnips, green broccoli, you know, all those. There's a lot of color in the produce aisle. I'm not talking your Cheetos or your blue Powerade drink or anything like that. Those are very colorful too, but I'm talking about the naturally colored things. That's what you want to start adding more into your diet. And you also get more variety. So maybe you try something you've never tried before because it has the color in it, you know, like an eggplant. Oh, let's try an eggplant steak or eggplant Parmesan this time instead of chicken Parmesan. And it just adds more variety and curiosity and kind of that spice of life in your diet too. And we also want to start adding more fiber, especially if we're caregiving and we're kind of more in a chronic stress state. And you get fiber from whole grains, fruit and leafy greens, and the suggested grams for a woman is 21 per day and 30 for men, 31 grams for men, excuse me. And that's the suggested amount per day is how much fiber we need. Now, I will say everybody is different. And I mean, every person and every person's body is different in how it needs or what it needs and how it metabolizes food. So keep that in mind too. And then we want to add more fluids. Waters, juices, soups, fruits, vegetables. We want to reduce alcohol and caffeine. Alcohol is dehydrating, and there is something, especially at night, alcohol, there's something it does to the brain. It doesn't turn off certain areas of the brain, so you get worse sleep or you don't get as good of sleep. And then caffeine, I would say cut off caffeine early in the day. The thing with caffeine is there are some studies that suggest caffeine has a protective element in the brain. But generally, especially in the Western diet, when we think caffeine, we think probably sodas or coffee or tea. And when we're talking about sodas, there's a lot of sugar added to sodas, so that's offsetting any benefit there. And coffee and tea, generally, there's a lot of sugar or possibly cream added to those as well. So we just want to be careful about what we're adding to our caffeinated drinks. And you can't have too much caffeine, especially if we're talking about heart health too. So that's why in this very first slide I have here, you want to make sure and talk to a trusted doctor before you start any type of diet or change in your diet, or you start adding something on, or even taking something out of your diet, because each person is different and what possible medication you're on might hinder or help with the diet changes that you have to. So it kind of looks like a lot here to add, or what a healthy diet should have, but there's not that much there, okay? It's not overwhelming, a list of stuff that needs to be in a healthy diet. So we did talk about omega-3s, and I'm just gonna briefly touch on this. There's a lot of text on this slide, but it does say omega-3s. We wanna make sure that's a part of our diet for brain health. And omega-3 is considered an essential fat, which means our bodies do not make it naturally, so we need to get it from our diet. Our modern Western diet generally does not contain enough omega-3s. So if you were following just a traditional Western diet, you might not be getting enough omega-3s. So you want to make sure you're either adding stuff that does have those omega-3s in them, and that's nuts, avocados, fatty fish. Or you could get a supplement. We're going to talk about supplements here in a minute, but talk to your doctor and a pharmacist about what type of omega-3 to get if you're going to add that supplement to your diet. Omega-6 is also essential fat, so meaning we need to get it from our diets because our body doesn't produce it, but the Western diet does include plenty of omega-6. And then omega-9s, our bodies make that naturally. Because you'll go to the vitamin aisle and you'll see probably 20 different choices on omega things that you can get. Which one do I get? So really kind of weighing those and understanding it more and asking the pharmacist too, and your doctor as well. So antioxidants, and we might have heard, we know antioxidants are important and we need them in our diet, but what exactly are they? In an antioxidant, what's happening in our bodies is our cells kind of produce waste as they're working so hard every day. And they can start to create free radicals in our body, which is an unstable molecule that can come back and damage our cells. So what we want to do is make sure and get rid of those unstable molecules every day. And a lot of the times our body just does this naturally. And the cells are producing this waste because it's reacting to the environment. It's a normal part of aging. You may get it from, you've had exposure to sun, like long exposure to sun, and stress. Okay, so stress, the cells can start to produce this as we are living in a chronic stress state. So we want to make sure that we're flushing these molecules or these free radicals out of our body, right? And what happens is if we get those antioxidants into our body, and the word antioxidants, anti-oxidation, so they are going to stop the oxidation, which is the damage to the free radical. So antioxidants kind of act like a vitamin C or vitamin E substance. And really, they're like the waste men of our body. They come in and they clear up the waste of the free radicals. So we want to make sure that we are getting those antioxidants in our body so they can clear the waste of those free radicals. Foods that where you can get antioxidants are berries. Dark chocolate, you don't want to overdo it, but dark chocolate, and the darker the better. It's the dark cocoa that has the antioxidants in it. Pecans, beans, and I listed the ones that are higher in antioxidants than other beans, and then artichokes. There's other things you can get them in, but those are the foods that have the highest amount of antioxidants in them. So adding more of those to your diet is very beneficial. Now, the Mediterranean diet, this diet has been studied for several years now, and it is a primarily plant-based diet. And you can see here the pyramid, which I really like about the food pyramid here, is at the very bottom is you have daily physical exercise or physical activity. That's probably a better word for it, right? And then it's listed here, you want to have more whole grains, breads, quinoas, polentas, couscous, which also these have a lot of proteins in them as well. And then you want to add on your fruits, your beans, your vegetables, then oils and cheeses. And then you have your fats, and then, it has red meat up at the very, very top. What I really like about this diet is it doesn't limit anything or restrict anything from your diet. And now let me say this, each person is different, but I don't know that taking some nutrients out of your diet is very beneficial. So if you say, I'm just going to not eat carbs anymore, I'm doing no carb diet, or I'm going to do no fat or no sugar. Well, our body needs fats, and it needs sugar, and it needs carbohydrates. It's just where are you getting them? What type are you getting this from? So you don't want to restrict anything because that can malnourish your body in some way. But it's the amount of it and where are you getting it from? Are you getting your carbohydrates from refined white bread, or are you getting it from quinoa? Your body will metabolize it differently, and we want the healthier carbohydrates. And this diet has been shown over and over again to decrease your risk for Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And it depends on how strictly you adhere to this diet too. So if you adhere to it 100%, your risk, they would say, is cut about 50% for getting Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. If you just kind of adhere to it, you're still cutting your risk, but it might be by like 30% or 20%, depending on how much you adhere to it. And then the MIND diet. This one is newer than the Mediterranean diet, but it is a hybrid of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. And the DASH diet is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. And really what this one is, sometimes this one might be a little bit easier to follow because they give you here 10 brain healthy food groups that you need to incorporate in weekly, daily if you can, and then really take out or restrict these 5 unhealthy food groups. These reduce your risk for cardiovascular disease or conditions. And again, just like the Mediterranean diet, depending on how strictly you adhere to it, you can cut your risk by a little bit over half for Alzheimer's disease and dementia if you really do stick to it. And really this diet, all three of these, the DASH, the MIND, and the Mediterranean diet, they're about adding brain protective foods daily to what you're doing and start to take out those foods that are draining to your brain, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So supplements. The thing with supplements is, first of all, if you are taking a supplement to get vitamins or minerals into your body, you may not be getting the benefit as you hope you are. The best way to get all the nutrients, the trace minerals, the vitamins that you need is through your food, because your body metabolizes the food way differently than it does a supplement or a pill. And the body's just going to take in those nutrients better through food. So you always want to try food first. If you're still not getting enough through your food, you want to talk to a doctor about the best supplement for you. And also the supplement industry is not regulated. So you want to make sure that you do some research on who you're buying these supplements from, because you might be selling you a supplement that's not what's in it. And there's not, like, the FDA is not regulating supplements. So just to keep that in mind too. And you also want to talk to a doctor about how would a supplement that I'm taking possibly interfere with some medications that I'm taking too, because they certainly can. But there are a couple of supplements you want to talk to your doctor about. Folic acid. It is essential to brain health and emotional health. It helps with our DNA and our RNA in our nervous system. So we want to make sure that we have the right levels of folic acid. And it helps the production of our neurotransmitters and how they interact in the brain, and that they're working and talking to each other. There have been people with a depression or more confusion or appetite loss have been shown to have low folic acid levels. And there's a list there of things you can get with folic acid in your food, or what foods to get them in. Vitamins B6 and B12, they are essential for brain function. And as we get older, our bodies don't produce vitamins B6 and 12 as well. So sometimes people are deficient in those, and the doctor can help you get those supplements or a shot for those. But maybe just start incorporating these into your diet through the list here: chickpeas, they're fortified in cereals, milks, fatty fish, things like that. And then vitamin E. Vitamin E is an antioxidant. And but some research does show that people who eat a diet that has high vitamin E are less likely to develop dementia. And you can see where the foods that you can find vitamin E in. And then vitamin D is important for our metabolism, for bone health, but for brain health and cardiovascular health as well. It's also studies are starting to show that vitamin D is very important for our immune system, keeping that immune system strong and resilient. So you want to get your vitamin 3 through oily fish, those kind of those healthy fats, through the sun. The sun doesn't produce it, it just metabolizes vitamin D well, eggs and mushrooms. And then brain draining foods. And some of these we know. I'm just going to briefly talk about added sugar. So there's a difference between processed sugar and, I guess, natural sugar, and that's either glucose or fructose. The glucose, which I said at the very beginning, our brain takes up about 70% of our glucose, and glucose is processed through every cell in our body. Fructose is mainly processed through your liver. So if you're eating foods that have added sugar to them, and sugar has many, many names to it, it doesn't go by just sugar. There's a lot of tricky names or manipulative names maybe that they put in the ingredient list, to where you want to make sure that you're getting a healthy amount of sugar, right? There's no reason to avoid sugar that's naturally, and that's in whole foods. It's the added sugars that are starting to, or that do start to hurt our heart health, our brain health, put on that added weight, give us less energy, make us more fatigued, all that stuff. Red meats, butters, creams, whole milks, these are high in cholesterol and high in saturated fats. And saturated fat has been linked to poor memory. Okay. So that's why we want to kind of restrict those or realize that those can drain our brain. And then refined flour, when it goes through the process, the refining process, it strips away the healthy part of the brain. And it also, I like this, the refining process creates an easy to digest food stuff that quickly gets into our bloodstream, but then it plummets. So it gives us, even it's that sugar high and then you plummet, right? But it also, not only do you plummet and you have that spike in your sugar and now you're back down, but it also makes you hungry sooner than a whole grain would have, or something that didn't go through the refining process. And the refining process can increase our risk for diabetes and high blood pressure. And then trans fats and sodas. So trans fats, really they were put in our food to help food stay on the shelf for an infinite amount of time, it seems like. But they have been, study after study, shown that they are just detrimental to our health. They should be removed from our foods by now. But you want to check for the words partially hydrogenated oil. And they don't have to list it on the ingredients if it has less than 0.5 gram on it, which may not, our bodies, it may not be detrimental at that point, with just a small amount, but just to let you know about it. And then of course sodas, they're high in sugar. And then there's the diet sodas with the artificial sugar in there. And with this, what the studies are showing are the artificial sweeteners, there is some things that happen or that are detrimental. They can still increase your risk for diabetes, for heart issues, even though it's not the straight sugar, it's the artificial stuff. But most of the studies were done on like your Sweet and Low or your Equals, the artificial sweeteners that have been out for a long time. The newer ones that tend to be more natural, like your stevias or your monk fruits, there's not as many studies done on those, so they may not have the same side effects to them. We just don't know yet. They haven't been out long enough for us to know. And then, of course, the amount of food. I think our Western diet, we eat more than we really need. So again, it comes down to, are you eating to live? Or are you living to eat? So we want to strive for progress, not perfection, and start to make small changes and just keep adding small changes. It's not like I'm asking you guys to get off this webinar and then make huge, just change your diet completely, right? Just start adding in small changes. I'm going to add in more fluids. I'm going to add in more fiber. I'm going to add in more color. And then just start making small changes from there. And develop a plan. Life does happen, and it can get us off track, but having a plan, but also being flexible, helps us maintain the diet we want for a longer period of time. And always talk to a trusted doctor before you start any changes or adding supplements or anything like that. But also if you start to develop any problems or you notice something that's not right, or this doesn't feel good, or I don't know if I like this. And here we are again. So a healthy brain really does come down to whole person wellness. So we've talked about exercise, we've talked about diet. Next week we'll talk about stress, and we'll cover all of these domains of wellness essentially to help us age well and age cognitively healthy. And are there any questions?
Hey, I've always heard that a person doesn't use 30% of their brain or whatever, and you said 100% of your brain is used.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess I was misinformed all my life.
Right. And a lot of people still kind of think that, but we do use 100% of our brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
Quick question, Jamie. On one of the
Yes.
slides, when it was talking about the high-fat diet, and it had a link or two asterisks, and it said, I thought it said, by the way, the BTW, but it had a link, and I didn't know there was more information on, because that's one thing I'm wondering about.
It was a link between, sorry, the BTW is between, a link between saturated fat and memory.
Okay.
So that's what that stands for, sorry.
Okay.
So there is, the studies have shown saturated fat and poor memory, there is a link between those high diets with high saturated fat and poor memory. There's a link there for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised that not to see coconut or coconut oil on there. Is that, did you, was that?
It's considered, I would put it in the same bucket as a supplement. It's not necessarily bad for you. It does have high saturated fat. There's no study to say that it helps with cognition. But I've also known people that say, I've started to incorporate it and it helps me. So as long as it's not detrimental to your full health, and knowing what's in it when you take it, because it is high fat, but that's okay. As long as it's not hurting you, right?
Yeah.
But there's not a lot
Jamie?
of studies that show anything for it. Yes.
Jamie, not everybody is in my situation, but I have been on Coumadin for the last 17 years. I have a mechanical heart valve and a lot, and I home test. I don't go to a lab. And a lot of people say, well, I can't take that. I can't eat green vegetables because I'm on Coumadin or warfarin. Coumadin has been discontinued, so it's now warfarin. And I have to disagree with that. You dose your diet. You don't diet your dose. You just eat what you want. Just be consistent. And I have at least one big salad a day, and I try to make it as colorful. I put red cabbage, red bell peppers, orange bell peppers. I put sunflower seeds, cherry tomatoes, avocados, remnants of leftovers, grilled salmon in it, hard-boiled egg. I do a lot of things, and that's my goal. Now, not everybody who is in that situation will want that, but I'm just passing that information on. You can still do that regardless of what people perceive as a constraint.
Thank you, Marcia. That's great. Great tips and great advice. Yes, 100%. Are there any other questions or tips to share?
I have some questions here, and I don't know so much if it's the diet or not, but I am going to talk about Larry. He's got to the point now he says he's in a fog most of the time, and his diet is not good. Is there anything I can do with that?
It could be. It could help kind of clear up or knock loose some of those cobwebs. If you start to incorporate more brain healthy things in the diet. There's also things shown if you eat smaller meals throughout the day, that can help too, because your body's constantly having to stay in the metabolism routine instead of just 3 big meals. That could help. But there's also, if somebody's living with dementia, all of these things help with the dementia being better, but then you also think, well, are they going to do it or not? Or do they understand? Or are they going to go back to their old habits? Or so you just kind of have to walk a line there, really.
Okay. Not a whole lot then.
And it might just be you just hand it to them. Like, this is, instead of asking, what do you want to eat? Or let's not eat a big meal. Let's just eat half now and half later. It might just be that you just start doing it and they just do what you give them, or eat what you give them, eat when you give it to them.
Yeah, I'm kind of finding that out. If I don't ask him, I just hand it to him, then he'll he's not eating much anymore, but he does eat it then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a problem with my brother, that my brothers have with my mother's come down with dementia. And they'll try to give her a choice and try to communicate. No, come on, you guys, just put it out there. This is what we're having, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things you do want to still provide choices and for them to make their own decisions, but there are some things where you just
Yeah.
I think you're really right on that, and I haven't been. I've been giving choices, and I need to stop it. You know,
Yeah.
giving choices.
Yeah. Make him feel like that it is his choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
This is what the cook's putting out. Isn't it good? Yeah.
Aren't you glad you ordered this? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Or they can make small choices like what you want tea or water to drink, or do you want a salad or do you want beans? I mean, little things like that, but it is a lot of it might just be here's what we're having.
Was any of this stuff causing him having problems with color? Everything is light green that he's seeing now.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think so. That might just be his visual field is changing, and when our vision changes with dementia, we don't see similar colors as well. So things might start to kind of look similar, or the colors the same. And he might also, that just might be the color that he can say too, if that makes sense. He might see other colors, but the one he can say is light green.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, because that's what is all of a sudden he's seeing everything is green, and and then of course he's getting the shakes real bad now too. And I think it's from lack of nutrition because he's just almost not eating. What do you do?
Yeah, and with that, particular people with dementia, they will start not eating as much. So you really just start when you make them food, put high fats in there. So you might have to be making 2 meals now, right? But you do want to use more heavy creams and more high fats, more high calorie content for them to get the nutrition, or even those Ensure shakes or those
we're doing those.
Stuff. Those, I mean, just give them more often throughout the day. You might not sit down and eat a large meal, but he'll eat little small things or drink shakes throughout the day that can help fill that nutritional loss that he's getting.
Okay, that's where I'm beginning to do that now. So I just would ask. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, thank you all so much for staying over a little bit late. I will email out the slides and the recording. Thank you. And I hope to see you all next Thursday when we talk about brain health and stress. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Good seminar.
Thank you.